Fight fans around the world, are you ready for the ultimate knockout experience? If you're a true lover of the sweet science, craving in-depth analysis, exclusive interviews, and the latest updates from the world of boxing, look no further. Ringside Boxing is a proud sponsor of the Zapata brand boxing podcast to deliver knockout deals with every episode. Visit ringside.com/podcast and unlock a jaw-dropping 40% off selected brands. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just stepping into the ring for the first time, Ringside Boxing has something for everyone. Don't miss out on this incredible deal. Elevate your boxing experience with Ringside. Ringside, the best in boxing. Hey, fight fans, welcome to the Zapata brand boxing podcast. And as a fight week approaches, who else to go to than Kevin Iole from KevinIole.com as he joins the show with a big fight week. Tyson Fury versus Alexander Usyk. Kevin, how are you?
I'm doing great, George. Thanks for having me again. Appreciate you, brother.
Anytime, Evan. Anytime there, Kevin. Last time we talked, well, this is rewind. Last time we talked was before the weekend fight of Lomachenko versus Kambosos. And we haven't got a chance to talk about it. We talked back and forth about it. I wanted to get your rewind quickly about that fight real quickly before we get into this week's action.
I was very impressed with Vasily Lomachenko and his win over George Kambosos. I make the point, and I made the point in 2021 before Kambosos fought Teofimo Lopez and scored a massive upset to become, in my mind, the undisputed lightweight champion. Kambosos was just kind of a journeyman, George. I think he was one of those guys, a high-level journeyman. He could compete with the elite-level fighters, but he wasn't an elite-level fighter himself. And he shocked Lopez and was on top of the world. But I think what he's done since, 2 fights against Devin Haney that he lost, a fight that he won against Maxie Hughes that I thought he really got lucky from the judges, and then the performance against Lomachenko where he was just totally outclassed. He wasn't even close. I thought Lomachenko performed well. I thought he looked really good in doing his thing. But I also think, that Kambosos, did not put up the stiffest opposition.
Now, I was talking to my brother, and we were going back and forth about this. My impression was Lomachenko could do well if he fought up another level to, not taking anything away from Kambosos at all. But was it because of the level that Kambosos was, and was he just that much overrated a little bit coming into this fight?
Yeah, I mean, Kambosos is definitely overrated. I mean, I think the win over Teofimo Lopez. Look, Lopez comes off a very impressive performance in beating Lomachenko himself. Then he goes in and he fights Kambosos, and it kind of was a shock to the system. I mean, that everything that could have gone wrong for Lopez went wrong, and he had a very serious illness going into that fight. The doctors told him he could have died. The condition that he had. So, Kambosos wins the fight, and you can't take it away from him. He showed up on fight night. Both guys signed a contract, said, I'll be there and I'll be in shape on fight night. And the guy that was in shape on fight night was George Kambosos. But I think if they fought 100 times, Lopez would win 99. Mm-hmm. And I think if Kambosos and Haney fought 100 times, Haney would win 100. And I think if, Maxie Hughes fought Kambosos 100 times, it would be 50-50, right? That's the kind of guy that George Kambosos is. And Lomachenko, Lomachenko did Lomachenko things, right? He, had the great footwork, the great punching accuracy, had a tremendous game plan. He executed it. He showed his quickness. He's a guy that's not really big enough to be fighting at 135. He's a guy that could be a featherweight. If there was an elite featherweight in the world and a big draw featherweight, Loma would be fighting there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was impressed with Lomachenko. The only thing I did see with him, he does mark up a lot. As he's getting older and getting to that position, he's going to have to fight. And saying that he does fight, you have said that he's prepared to fight. He's going to fight on. There was some talk that he wasn't going to fight, but you've made it clear that he is. Does that become a factor in his next couple fights?
I think his age is a factor. Like, when Tank Davis basically said, after I fight Frank Martin, I'll take Loma next. At this point, Tank is a legitimate 135 who's bordering on a 140. Loma is a 135 or who should be fighting at 130 or 126. Now, Loma's not a guy that makes excuses. And I think, if he's offered that fight, he will take that fight. But when we're handicapping the fight and we're looking at it, and we, of course, we don't know what's going to happen in the Frank Martin fight. So we're assuming he gets past Frank Martin. But, so this is we have to put an asterisk by what I'm saying, because we don't know what's going to happen to Frank Martin. But I think, Tank has the advantages because he's younger and he's closer to what his prime would be. And he's at more of a natural weight class at 135 than Loma would be. That being said, this is what Loma has done for much of his career, right?
Uh-huh.
So, he wouldn't be anything different to him.
And well, that turns our attention now to the big fight on Saturday night, where you will be on ppv.com, the real-time chat with Dan Canobio and Chris Algieri. ppv.com is a platform that you could just buy the fight. You don't have to buy every subscription there is. You buy the fight, you get what you pay for. I've been on it for the last couple times that I've seen it. ppv.com have it. It's very engaging and it's very entertaining and it's interactive. Kevin, answer your questions as everyone else on the platform. Kevin from kevinole.com. I've read your stuff and I know what you're going to pick, but I want to hear, my fans want to hear it. Let's hear what you say. Give me the breakdown of Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk this Saturday night. What happens?
I like Usyk to win the fight. I really do. I think Usyk at this point is the better fighter of the two. I think Tyson Fury is a phenomenal story. The mental health issues that he overcame, beating Vladimir Klitschko to become heavyweight champion, then being beset by mental health issues, ballooning up to 400 pounds, being on cocaine and other drugs and drinking and all the things. And he was 400 pounds and he got back and he was able to get himself back into shape. Fights a draw with Deontay Wilder that a lot of people think he should have won. And then he goes back and wins 2 fights, stops Wilder in the 7th, stops him in the 11th, and drops him 5 times in those 2 fights. I think Tyson Fury is a remarkable story in this era of ours. I just think Usyk is poised. Usyk is a really smart boxer. He's made a career out of fighting and beating bigger guys. And one of the things that I believe very strongly is, look, Wilder had Fury had those unbelievable fights with Wilder. And not only were there knockdowns, but Wilder's one of the hardest punchers ever. And those punches take a toll on you, right? And after the 3rd fight that they had, October 9th in 2021 here in Las Vegas, I was at that fight. Tyson Fury said, I think I'm going to retire. I don't need to take these kind of blows anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And subsequently, he has fought a washed-up Dillian White, a washed-up Derek Chisora, and a 38-year-old MMA fighter, Francis Ngannou, who was making his pro boxing debut. And you contrast that with Alexander Usyk, back-to-back wins over Anthony Joshua. They both had won Olympic gold medals in 2012 in London. Joshua got the super heavyweight gold medal. Usyk won the heavyweight gold medal. They fight as pros in 24 rounds. Usyk does not get dropped and wins the majority of those rounds, wins those 2 fights, and then he gets a win over Daniel Dubois. I just think that his form, his boxing ability, everything leads me, I know it's going to be a difficult fight. And Sean Porter, the former welterweight champ, who's now a great podcaster and a brilliant boxing analyst, he told me, he said, you can't overlook the size that Tyson Fury brings. And I agree with that. But I do think Usyk's boxing ability and his ring IQ will lead him to a win here.
Now, I was looking down when you were talking. I don't know if you heard this. This just happened. I just got a text message. The Tyson Fury spotted with crutches. And there is a video.
That was a joke.
That was a joke?
Yeah, he went into the media. They had the arrival ceremony today, and he's been in Saudi Arabia for a while, right? But they had they do it here in Vegas too. They call it they started it at the MGM. They call it the Grand Arrivals because MGM Grand, right? And the fighters, but they're already in Vegas for a couple of days before that. But they make it's a way to make another media event. And so Tyson was just a joke. He showed up to go on Sky TV. He was on crutches, but it was a joke.
I thought it was because because it's from DAZN.com, and I said, "There's no way they'd put that on there. That would be a total disaster for this." Could you imagine? We were just talking when I somehow messed up this whole entire first 20 minutes of our podcast here. We were talking about how the heated argument with John Fury and Usyk's camp could have caused a total nightmare for this fight. It didn't. They will get into the ring come Saturday night. A couple things I was talking to you about previously. Your Turki Al-Sheikh comes in, brings these fights together. Why would he be doing this in Saudi Arabia and now coming over to the United States?
Yeah, I think, Turki Al-Sheikh is the chairman of the General Entertainment Authority in Saudi Arabia. And when they first started this, I think what their goal in all of this was, hey, let's try to get rich British people to retire here and to vacation here. And if you look, Riyadh basically was desert, right? There wasn't much there. And now they have a strip like the Las Vegas Strip, and it's become a big hub for sports and entertainment. They're getting big name acts going over there in music and comedy and, entertainment of all sorts, right? They're getting all those top acts going over there, cultural events they're bringing there. And then the sports that they're bringing are basically sports that, if you look, that are very big in the UK. Boxing and MMA. It's a fighting country. They love their fights. Golf and soccer. Those are sports that are massive over there, and that's what the Saudis have been attracting. And so I think that they started this whole thing with the idea, let's get a lot of the rich British people to retire here and get them to vacation here. Now, I think a side benefit of that was Turki Al-Sheikh himself is a boxing fan. And he's realized, and he probably should have realized it before, but probably because he wasn't in the business, his money can make people jump, right? We've had promoters, Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn, would never work with each other before. They had never spoken, but they didn't work with each other because they thought they hated each other because they were on other sides of the street. Frank Warren with Queensberry Promotions and Eddie Hearn with Matchroom. And it was kind of like the old days in the United States with Don King and Bob Arum, right? They rarely worked together. And they would always say bad things. I was there when Trinidad beat De La Hoya, and Don King, lonesome Bob. The lights went out in Aramville, and it was crazy. I mean, that was a promotion in and of itself. I'll never forget that. The lights were out in Aramville, and Aram had his PR guy pull the plug on the microphone when Don King was talking. That's how bitter the things were between them at that time. But Turki Al-Sheikh's money got involved, and now you see Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren working together all the time. They're putting on good shows, and now I think it shows a lot of insight. And I don't know who in Saudi Arabia this was, whether it was Turki Al-Sheikh or somebody else in his hierarchy, but they're taking the fights not only and leaving them all in Riyadh. Most of them are going to be in Riyadh, but they're taking some to the UK. They're going to take, we know August 3rd, there's a huge card coming to the soccer stadium in LA that's going to have Terrence Crawford and Israel Madrimov in the main event. They understand they can't kill the sport by putting all the big fights over there in Riyadh, where they're on in the middle of the day over here in the United States. So I think they're making an investment in boxing, and they're helping to build boxing back up.
The one thing that I will say with the Saudi cards, and I don't know if you feel the same way I do, they got to be less than 7 hours. That is I mean, I don't know if the best one I've seen lately is Amazon. UFC does it the best. They do it the best. They're top of the line. But oh man, I can't do a 7-hour pay-per-view again from Saudi. I can't even
try having a chat during a 7-hour pay-per-view with the same questions 800 times.
I was right there with you. I was like, I got to leave. I got to leave for a minute because it is a long time. It's a drawn out thing, and maybe that's something that they can tweak. Maybe make it more Americanized a little bit. Do you think
one of the things that happened on that card, and that 7-hour card was Anthony Joshua versus Francis Ngannou. And what happened on that card, not that makes it right, but what happened on that card, there was a soccer game that day, and Turki Al-Sheikh's favorite soccer team was playing. And so after a couple of the undercard fights, Turki Al-Sheikh was watching the soccer game. They he's putting on the show. They waited,
Oh
they
my
held
God.
the card up until that soccer game ended so he could
Wow.
get in and see the rest of the card. I don't anticipate that happening on Saturday this week. So I think the card, there's a lot of fights. They're going to put a lot of
There
fights
is.
on TV, but I think the card will move a little bit better this time.
When I saw the lineup of all those cards, I said it's going to be enough. I could remember telling my wife, I think it started at 2, if I'm not mistaken. Was it 2 or 4, right around there?
What's the March 8th card?
The March 8th one. Which one was that? 2?
I think it started like at 8:30 in the morning.
Oh, really? Well, that's your time. That's your time. That's your time. Yeah, I was out. Yeah, so
11:30 your time.
yeah, so I was like sitting there, like, oh, the main event will be on like 4:00. It didn't get on to. It might have been 8:00. I couldn't believe how that was poorly run. But now that you give me that backstory, it makes sense. You do whatever you want to do if you're putting that kind of money up for a show like that. So, gun to your head, Kev. Give us your pick here and how it goes down Saturday night.
Like I said, I like Usyk by decision in the fight. I think that he's going to have difficulty. He's going to have to get inside of Tyson Fury's jab. If Fury is fighting tall and throwing that jab, that is a problem for Alexander Usyk. So Usyk needs to slide to the side, punch to the body, and then get to that. I think the mid range is where he wants to be. I think if he get to Sean Porter's point, what I mentioned earlier is if Fury and Usyk get close, Fury ties him up, and now they're back at distance, right? And so now Usyk has to work his way in, and that's always a difficult thing. So I think Usyk is going to want to be fighting at that mid-range, right? So he has to slip the jab and now be at that mid-range where it's a difficult punch for Fury to land, and he's able to land his thing. Usyk is a big guy himself, 6'3", 78-inch reach. I'm guessing he's going to be 225, 230. That's bigger. A lot of people think Muhammad Ali was the greatest heavyweight who ever lived. There's a lot of people who think Muhammad Ali was the greatest fighter who ever lived. And while Ali is my idol, I would never say he was the greatest fighter who ever lived. He was the greatest, but not the greatest fighter who ever lived. Sugar Ray Robinson is that. But I think, Usyk is a big guy, right? Bigger than Muhammad Ali. So, he has to be careful where the distance he fights at. He can't be too close himself and smother himself, but I think he's a master at that. And I think you'll see him get to that middle distance and be able to rack up points. And he has a good enough chin that if Fury comes up with that uppercut, I think A, he'll be waiting for it, but B, I think he'll also be able to survive it if he's only getting hit with one punch at a time. I think where you're going to see trouble is if you see early in the fight that Fury is landing that, Polak's jab from a great distance. And if he starts landing that jab from the outside consistently, then it's going to be a long night for Alexander Usyk.
I'm going to go total opposite, but then again, I don't think I've been right on the picks that we've made since we started back in. We're coming up on our anniversary, by the way. So I don't think I've been right, but I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to take Tyson Fury. I do believe although we do disagree, I think Alexander Usyk to the body is weak. I think he'll go to the body yet, but towards later end of the fight, I think he will go to the body. I think Tyson Fury wins, and I'm going to say he's going to stop him. Whether it's TKO or KO, he will stop him, I think.
What do they say? A blind squirrel gets an acorn every now and then?
I'm trying to get one. I haven't got one yet, Kev. Every time we do a pick, I'm so far off. So if hey, audience out there, go with Kevin. Whatever he picks. As a matter of fact, if you go to keviniole.com, it's quickly becoming the best combat sports material out there on the internet.
Thank you. I appreciate that, brother.
He does the picks. He does them every week. And he also has his YouTube channel. Kevin Iole is just his name. But keviniole.com is where you go to get the best combat sports news. Kevin Iole, again, thanks for joining us here. And you'll be able to see him this Saturday, ppv.com with Kevin Iole, Dan Canobio, and Chris Algieri. Kevin, as always, great to see you.
My man, I appreciate you for having me. Thank you all the time.
And we'll see you probably in about a week.
Definitely.
Thanks for watching the Zapata Brand podcast. Please subscribe to the podcast and listen where all podcasts are available.